What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 13 of The Daily Entrepreneur. I'm James. I'm here with Jack and Josh. We're the School of Hard Knocks, and let's get right into it with our first story today. So starting off, the United States broke a new record of the most jobs ever in a single year being restored from overseas. In fact, they added about $350,000 jobs following quarter three, still have another quarter to go. But what are your guys' thoughts on kind of this development and new job growth from other countries back into the United States?
I think it's great for the economy. Only reason being is just because if we've been outsourcing a lot of our industries to other countries, this will hopefully bring us enough workers, regardless if they're American or not, in the U.S. that could help work on these industries on U.S. soil.
Yeah, and we saw in this reports, companies like LG, Mintel, and there were plenty of other ones that came out saying that because of COVID-19 and the drastic effect that had on manufacturing and just the supply chain in general, when you have like a global pandemic, it's very common that, outsourcing or production in a certain, trying to get that done from overseas with all the barriers that shipping internationally faced, it was just so unproductive. And therefore, these people realized, look, we got to be going domestic so that way, especially another thing too, not only COVID, but if you look at the tensions that we're seeing in Russia and Ukraine with Europe and also with China right now, when you have tensions like that, businesses are not going to necessarily, countries are not going to want businesses, if they're tense or in a rivalry with another country, they're not going to want their businesses doing business in another place. So I know that was kind of complex, but it just, with tensions rising, you want production, manufacturing, all that to be done in a singular country. It's okay to outsource, where there may be cheaper labor and you don't have to pay people as much. I get that. But from a productivity standpoint and efficiency, it's always good, and it's good to see that jobs are coming back.
Yeah, I feel like especially for like essential items, especially for a lot of things in tech. I remember I was booting my computer early COVID, and a lot of the things that I wanted to order, I couldn't order because it was all backed up in manufacturing locations in China, Taiwan, and I just didn't have access to it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great for every once in a while, you could check the tag on some clothing or look at the bottom of a product and you actually saw made in the USA every once in a while.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, who made it and where they came from. If it's here in the USA, that's just going to help our GDP a ton.
Absolutely. And I think it's just a great thing, especially to bring up some cities like, let's say, Detroit, for example, that used to be booming industrial towns, but have just since then kind of just degraded because they lost a lot of jobs. If we can bring those big manufacturing jobs back to these cities that are kind of struggling, I think that'd be great for the American economy and the American people.
And one other thing I really want to note about this article is that while I do agree with you and it'd be great for jobs, one thing that was noted is that a lot of workers are very hesitant and they are worried because automation in the manufacturing industry is insane right now. In fact, over 12,000 robots have been sold to work in various factories and just manufacturing trade jobs. So while there is, a big hope for jobs to come back and open up, that is something that people are very fearful about. And just kind of like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we could bring it back to one of our previous episodes that my personal solution for this is, don't get beat by Terminator, learn how to control it. And so what we need to do is these companies, especially these manufacturers, if they want to keep these people working these jobs, or at least the government maybe hash out some grants or something like that to some of these companies in being able to provide special training for these employees to be able to work some of these automation features. Of course, maybe you need to cut some jobs, but this will reduce the amount that you have to lay off and could at least maybe help you keep half your workforce still intact that you were going to lose. And this will also just promote an overall field, the level of education for employees, especially people that aren't going to college for a degree. This could be huge, a new trade that could open up, sort of like an artificial intelligence or robotic enhancement training for people to be able to work on those automation machines in factories and stuff like that.
And I also think companies investing into their employees would also stop a lot of the problems of, people, the quiet quitting, people trying to switch jobs all the time. Because when people feel like they're learning and they're actually growing with the company, they're more willing to stay because they feel like they're actually being invested in. The UK is suing TikTok because they feel like they have been violating children's privacy, pretty much going through children's data who under the age of 13. And this is slightly concerning to me because already TikTok already intrudes on so much data that you have as a user. What are you guys kind of thoughts on just like TikTok and just their data control in general?
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of, crazy to see that this is happening and kind of the control that these companies, when you're on their platforms, have with your data. And, we saw in the peak of the US with the controversy with TikTok and the data problem when it was almost banned outright completely. And so I definitely, think the concept of having it based, in the United States or wherever, whatever respective country it is, if it's in the UK, they should definitely have an operations and control out there. So that way another country doesn't necessarily have access to your data. And who has access to that data when you sign up on their platform.
Well, I think regardless, and some people might disagree with me on this, but I think that these age limits on these social media platforms need to be in stone and they need to be followed correctly. Especially parents need to look out for this as well, but it's also the responsibility of the social media platform to make sure that the people on their platform are old enough to be on there. And it has nothing to do with just even the content that they see, but the effects on the brain that it has consuming that much rush of dopamine that they get using a platform like TikTok. It's insane. And then you go over to the data side of things. These are children. They don't know how to deal with that. They don't know what information they could be telling the algorithm or the machine and stuff like that. So, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all turns out. But I definitely think that there needs to be some accountability for these social platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to see just the evolution of TikTok because like you mentioned earlier, how it was almost banned. I remember there was talks about how members of Congress, them and their family should not download the app because of just worries of national security. But also now it just makes you think of like their algorithm is so good and it's actually different country to country. I've seen reports about how in the US, there's more in terms of the algorithm, there's more of the comedy and kind of like useless content, whereas in China, it promotes like math and science and accomplishments. And so it's interesting to see how maybe China is using TikTok to get an edge on early education.
Yeah, and so that brings us to our last topic. Mark Zuckerberg and Meta have employees placed on a 30-day watch list. Essentially, these employees have 30 days to find a new job or they will be terminated. And this comes after Meta experienced its first decrease in monthly revenue. And so what are you guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I would note is that we were seeing reports earlier this year that for the first time in the history of Facebook, that Facebook users have stagnated, meaning that they are no longer necessarily growing in users as a platform, which was the first time ever. So it definitely does make sense. And with the on-rise of all these other social media platforms and various programs that are coming out, it's, this could be kind of the era where, Facebook could be turning into more of like the MySpace for the later generations to come.
Yeah. Honestly, believe it or not, I think they're actually being really nice by even offering to do this because I feel like most companies will just go ahead and lay off portions of their workforce. And I feel like the ability to actually, give them the opportunity to not only find a job within Meta within 30 days, or at least give them the option to explore their opportunities for 30 days, I think it's being pretty nice because I feel like a lot of companies just go ahead and sever their relationships with employees.
Yeah, I also saw that the number one thing that they're really looking at is just they want to cut costs by 10% company-wide, and that's exactly why they're looking at labor first. And basically what Zuck wants to do is that he wants to take the teams that are currently within Meta and do more with less resources. Obviously, these cuts are probably because maybe they have too many people that they started this new parent company, Meta, brought way too many people in, and then now they're going to have to make some cuts because they realize they're not getting as much done for the amount of people that they've hired, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, from a creator's perspective, we'll see that, we've obviously worked with support there and stuff like that. We'll see if that area gets impacted at all. We'll see if there's any changes to the algorithm because of this. Do you guys think there'll be any changes to the algorithm? Obviously, they want to try to keep up with TikTok and everything, so...
Honestly, I just feel like they're just going to continue to try to compete and implement what these other major platforms are really doing right now. But my really only concern is really just the direction that they're going. I'm kind of with the investors right now. I don't really know how I feel about where they're going with the metaverse side of things. I don't know if it'll be a boom or a bust. I feel like it is a really big risk, and I think the investors are thinking the same way. That's why the valuation of the company has been dipping. But who really knows where Meta's going to be, a year from now, 5 years from now? It's really up to the CEO and what the team really comes up with.
Thank you guys so much for watching The Daily Entrepreneur. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a like and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more episodes. I'm Jack, James, and Josh with the School of Hard Knocks, and we'll catch you in the next one.